בוקר טוב. בוקר טוב, good morning.
Good morning. Looks like the lockdown is getting less.
Yeah, it's getting like freeing up. People go
One
David.
day we have hope to see you in person one day.
Hopefully soon. Yeah, who knows? They say that shuls they're only gonna let in September maybe. But
I saw them in the Chovei Zion davening outside last night.
Yeah. right, outside they let it. So
In the Chatzerim,
yeah,
in September.
that's what they
What
say.
about the schools? I don't want the schools to open.
Schools they're discussing today, so we'll see what they decide. But I'm
I
not.
think they want May the 3rd. May the 3rd.
Yeah, but I'm not sure why Shir Chadash can't go back to the courtyard there. It's I mean up to 19 people. It's even 20. It could make two minyanim.
Yeah, they can. They should be allowed to.
Yeah. Okay, slowly. Okay, so we're today in page what? Page 52. 52a1. The fourth line. Tana devei Menashia. Tana devei Menashia is shechakakla. He speaks about a goat. A goat that he pierced. Chakakla ben karnea or bekarnea. It seemed like he pierced its horns and put like a rope there. Then he can pull it with that rope. Yotz'a be'afsar b'Shabbat. I think it's because he can't control the numbers on Shabbat. Okay, but during the week he can still do it. So this goat can go out and afsar with this. If it's a afsar, I'm not sure what's afsar in English. That's afsar. Afsar is
Carved.
how do you call it? Carved?
Yeah, a goat whose owner carved out holes between its horns.
Right. And what did it tie there in these
A
holes?
halter may go out with a
Halter.
on the
Okay.
Sabbath.
Okay. Afsar is a halter. So she may go out with a halter if it's in these holes in the horns, but just to tie a rope, it's not enough because it might become loose and then they might come to carry it in the public domain. And then by Rav Yosef inquired, what if he put the halter in its beard? Tachavla bizkanama. What if he tied the beard of the goat? He made there like a hole, and he put the halter there. Is there a concern that it might fall and he might come to carry it on Shabbat or not? On one side, if it's going to pull it, it will hurt it. So the goat will not come to disconnect it. Or perhaps maybe the knot will be loose, and then the halter might fall and he might come to carry it. This remains a teiko, unresolved. Okay, Tnanatam, we have a Mishnah later at the end of this chapter, page 54b. That Mishnah refers to a cow. And it says that a cow may not go out to the public domain on Shabbat with a strap between its horns. And now there's a dispute what kind of strap is forbidden. Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba pligei ba Rav Shmuel. Rav Shmuel disputed this. Chad Amar, one of them said, Ben lenoi, ben leshamer, asur. Whether if the purpose of the strap is for beauty or to even guard the cow, both are forbidden. Because as we said, for beauty, there's no justification for any animal to go out to the public domain with a burden which is just for beauty. That's an unnecessary burden. And also, even if it's to guard the cow, it's unnecessary because a cow does not need to be guarded. It doesn't run away. so there's no need for this rope to be tied between its horns, and therefore it's an excess burden, which is forbidden. That's one opinion. And the other one says, if it's for beauty, it's forbidden because it's obviously unnecessary. If the purpose is to guard the cow, even though it's an extra guarding, it's still okay. And this dispute we actually mentioned yesterday between Tanakama and Hananya in the Braita at the end of 51b. If extra guarding, is that considered a burden, an unnecessary burden or not? So the same dispute was between Rav and Shmuel, but it doesn't say who said what. Which one said it's forbidden, which one said it's permitted. So Amar Rav Yosef, Tistayem, I can prove the Shmuel who Amar leno yasur leshamer mutar. Shmuel is the one who permits to have an extra thing that is overqualified, over guarding. It's still okay to carry it on Shabbat for an animal. How do we know that? The Amar Rav Huna bar Chia Amar Shmuel halacha keChananya. Shmuel said halacha. Hananya was the one who said yesterday that a cat can go out with an overqualified collar. So that's the proof. But Amar le Abaye Adraba, says Abaye, on the contrary, Tistayem, I can bring you a proof. The Shmuel who de Amar ben lenoi ben leshamer asur. Shmuel is actually the one who said that there's a prohibition to have an overqualified guarding for an animal. De Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel. Shmuel himself said, he quoted the question that was asked before Rebbe. Machlifin lefnei Rebbe. They exchanged before Rebbe the cases. Shel zo bezomar. The Mishnah permits a camel to go out with this halter, and the Naaka, the female camel, to go with the Khatam, with the stronger one. So they asked Rabbi, why about the opposite? Amar lefanav Rabbi Ishmael beRabbi Yossi, kach amar Abba. My father said, Arba behemot yotzot be'afsar. Only four animals may go out with a halter. Hasus, a horse, hapered, a mule, ve'agamal, a camel, ve'achamor, and a donkey. So obviously he comes to exclude something. He says only it's these four and nothing else. What is that? What does it want to exclude? Lav lamiute gamal bechatam. Is it not to exclude a camel with the khatam? Khatam is this iron muzzle, which is an over qualified guarding for a camel. So it seems like Shmuel, who quoted this, apparently agrees with this, that overqualified guarding is a burden. It's unnecessary burden for an animal in Shabbat. So we have now a kind of a contradiction between Shmuel's statement. On one side, he said Allah follows Hananya, who says that an overqualified guarding is fine. It's not considered an extra burden on Shabbat. But then he himself quoted Rebbe, who says that it's forbidden. So what do we do with this contradiction? So the answer is Samiha mikameha, delete this one because of that one. So we should delete this quote of Shmuel who quoted Rebbe, ignore that, and say that Shmuel follows Hananya, who says that it's permitted to have an overqualified guarding for an animal. But the question is, who tells you to delete the second one and not the first one? Why do you delete this one? Why not delete the other one? So there is a solution to that. There's another version in the Gemara here. It's in parentheses, but it says it was said Rav Chia bar Ashi Amar Rav. So he says Rav says Ben lenoi ben leshamer asur. Rav is the one who prohibits it. He says even if the purpose is to guard the animal, to overqualified guard it, it's forbidden. Rav Chia bar Ravin Amar Shmuel lenoi asur. Anything for beauty for an animal is forbidden. It's an but leshamer mutar. If the purpose is to guard it, even if it's not needed, if the animal could be guarded with something less than that, it's still permitted. Okay, so that remains a dispute. Shmuel holds that it's okay when you delete are you saying that he didn't say it or he changed his mind? Depends on the context, depends on the place. I'm not sure. Here it says to delete. Either he didn't say it, or maybe it was a mistaken version said in his name. I'm not sure if we can tell what the meaning of the deletion is. You can say deletion, right? So, but anyway, it says to ignore that statement of Shmuel. Now comes a challenge to the opinion that prohibits an extra something which is overqualified to guard the animal. The one who prohibits it and says that it's an extra burden, unnecessary burden, comes a challenge to that from a Mishnah in Masechet Para, because Para Aduma, as the Torah says, Asher lo ala alea ol, lo ala alea ol, no burden should be on it. If any burden was on it, it becomes disqualified for Para Aduma. So the Mishnah there says in Masechet Para, if the owner of the Para Aduma, of the red cow, tied it b'moseira, moseira, that's like a halter, like a muzzle, something that obviously for a cow it's unnecessary because the cow does not run away. So anything that to guard a cow is an extra burden according to one opinion, and the Mishnah says still kshera, the animal is kosher. Now if it's true, as one opinion says, that this thing which is unneeded, not needed to guard the cow, is considered an unnecessary burden, so then Asher lo ala alea ol amar Rachmana, the Torah says that any unnecessary burden disqualifies the cow. So how come it does not become disqualified? So there are three answers according to that opinion, which say that in general it's true that something which is not needed to guard the animal is considered an unnecessary burden, and that Mishnah discusses special circumstances where it's not a problem. One answer is Amar Abaye b'molicha me'ir le'ir. That Mishnah discusses a case of one who transfers the cow from town to town, and when you take a cow out of town, then you do need to guard the cow, because naturally the cow will turn to graze where it could find food. So you need something stronger to guard it. That's the case of that Mishnah that says that this thing is not an extra burden. Another answer is Rava Amar Shani Para Aduma. A red cow is different because the Damya Yekarin, it's such an expensive cow, as the famous story in Kiddushin says that they paid a lot of money for such a cow, so that you would guard with a special thing. And the third answer is Ravina Amar b'moredet. He says that Mishnah speaks about a very wild cow. After all, somebody said this morning it's a red hair cow, so it's tends to be wild, so it requires more guarding. Okay, Asus Besher, the Mishnah says that a horse can go out on Shabbat to the public domain, Besher. Sher is like a metal ring around its neck with another smaller ring. And the Kohen, well, I'm not sure if the cow is a Kohen, but okay. Ma yotzin, the Mishnah says yotzin v'nimshachim, they can go out and be pulled with that sher. So ma yotzin u'ma nimshachim, what does it mean? Go out, and what does it mean? Are pulled with that. So that's also a dispute. Ravuna Amar Ravuna says, oh, yotzin kruchin, they can either go out kruchin. I mean, there's a ring around the neck of the animal, a large ring, to which a small ring is attached, and to that small ring they tie like a rope. So that rope could be around the neck of the animal. That's called kruchim, wrapped around the neck of the animal. That's one option. Or yotzin kruchin, or you could also pull it with a rope. Either way is fine. That's what Ravuna said. But Shmuel says no. Shmuel Amar no. Yotzin nimshachin. The only way they may go out with this is nimshachin. If you pull the rope, then it's fine. The animal is not carrying an extra burden. The en yotzin kruchin, but the animal, you cannot let the animal go out with a rope wrapped around its neck. because that rope would be an extra burden, unnecessary burden for the animal, which is forbidden. So that's a dispute. B'matnit Tana, the Braita says, Yotzin kruchin li'mashech. It's like a compromise. They can go out with a rope wrapped around their neck, but it should be so loose that there should be still space between the rope and the neck of the animal. In case the animal will try to run away, you'll be able to hold it there. You'll have room for your hand to be inserted between the rope and the neck of the animal. That's fine. Okay, Amar Rav Yosef. Rav Yosef says, Chazina lo, I myself saw, le'iglei devei Rav Huna, the calves of Rav Huna's, that belong to Rav Huna, yotzin be'afsarayen kruchin b'Shabbat. They went out on Shabbat to the public domain with these ropes around their necks. So Rav Huna is the one who actually permitted it. So his calves actually went out that way. Now there's a report about Rebbe. What did Rebbe rule in that? Ki ata Rav Dimi. Rav Dimi came from Eretz Israel to Babylonia. Amar Rabbi Chanina reported in the name of Rabbi Chanina, Mulaot shel Beit Rebbe, the mules that belonged to Rebbe, yotzot be'afsarihen b'Shabbat. They also went out to the public domain with their afsar, with this halter, which is a ring around its neck with a rope tied to it. They went out with that to the public domain on Shabbat. The problem is it did not specify how exactly did they go out. Is it like Rav Huna who permitted even the rope wrapped around its neck, or only with a person holding the rope? So Ibayalu, that's the inquiry. Kruchin and Nimshachin. So the proof is Tashma ki ata Rav Shmuel bar Yehuda. Another report that came from Eretz Israel. Rav Shmuel bar Yehuda Amar Rabbi Chanina, Mulaot shel Beit Rebbe, the mules that belong to Rebbe, yotzot be'afsarihen kruchim b'Shabbat. So he said explicitly that they went out with these ropes wrapped around their necks on Shabbat, no problem. Just like Rav Huna permitted, so too Rebbe's mules went on Shabbat. Now, okay, and now comes a question about all these reports we have in the name of Rebbe. It seems like there's no novelty. Amaru Rabbanan, the students, said Kamei de Rav Ashi, had the Rav Shmuel bar Yehuda, this last report we mentioned in the name of Rav Shmuel bar Yehuda, lo tzricha. He actually did not even need to say that, because we already knew that Rebbe's mules went out with the ropes wrapped around their necks on Shabbat. How did we know that? Mid Rav Dimi nafka. We could know it from Rav Dimi's report. Rav Dimi already told us that Rebbe's mules went out on Shabbat with these halters, with these ropes. Now, obviously, he meant to say that the ropes were wrapped around their necks, because if Rav Dimi meant to say around the necks of the animals, but rather were pulled by people, so that is unnecessary. Rav Dimi's testimony is not a novelty. We know that already from Rav Yehuda. Mid Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel nafka, because the Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel, he already also reported in the name of Rebbe, says Machlifin layu lifnei Rebbe shel zo bezo mau. They asked Rebbe, as we said, to reverse the cases of the Mishnah. As Amar lefanav Rabbi Yishmael Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi told him, Kach Amar Abba, my father said, Arba be'emot yotzot be'afsar. 4 animals may go out on Shabbat with such a halter, with a rope. Hasus ve'apered ve'agamal ve'achamor. One of them is a pered, a mule. So since Rabbi Yishmael Rabbi Yossi said in the presence of Rebbe that a mule may go out with this on Shabbat, obviously the least permission should be a person. So that we already know that Rebbe permits. So if Rav Dimi came later and reported that Rebbe's mules went out with these ropes on Shabbat, obviously he must add another novelty. So his novelty must have been that the ropes were not even held by a person, they were wrapped around the necks of the animals. So we already know it from Rav Dimi's report. So why do we need the other report of Rav Shmuel bar Yehuda? Sounds like there's no novelty in that. There is a novelty in each and every one, because the assumption of these students was that the question that was asked in the presence of Rebbe and was answered by Rabbi Yossi, since Rebbe was silent, he agreed to that. But Rebbe's silence means nothing, does not mean that he agrees. So Amar Lu Rav Ashi, it's terichlu, it's terich. There's still a novelty because the imid Rav Yehuda, who only said that this question was asked before Rabbi, and Rabbi Ishmael ben Rabbi Yossi answered it. We could have thought the imid Rav Yehuda nafka Hava Amina Amar lefanav. Okay, Rabbi Ishmael said before him velo kibla mineh, but Rabbi did not accept it. No, nobody ever said that Rabbi agreed to Rabbi Ishmael ben Rabbi Yossi's statement. So that's why Kamash Belan the Rav Dimi is just informing us that Rabbi indeed agreed that mules may go out with this halter, with this rope on Shabbat, but he did not specify whether the rope could be wrapped around the necks of the animal or should it be held by a person. That's why we need the other testimony of Rav Yehuda. From Rav Dimi's testimony, we could only know the list, which is that the ropes are pulled by a person, but not that there's a permission to have them wrapped around the necks of the animal. That's why we need that other testimony. So each one added another novel, superfluous, everything's fine. It seems like Allah follows Rav Huna that indeed the rope may be wrapped around the neck of the animal. What's the reason that the ropes were wrapped around them? I guess just for them not to be dangling and not to be drawn on the floor. So they, I guess that was the custom, to wrap it around the neck of the animal. The question was, or there was a dispute, if that way is considered an unnecessary burden for the animal. So Rav Huna permitted it. Says no problem. The animal can carry it. It's not considered an unnecessary burden for the animal. So this was today's part of Hilchot Shabbat. There was a question about the dog lead. Where was the question? I didn't see. Let's see. I don't see the question. Dog's lead. Okay. Yeah, you can you can take a dog if there's a. In general, if you lead a dog, and anything that is needed to guard the dog is fine. But anyway, today, if you take a dog with a leash, so of course you can hold the leash and the other end is tied to the neck of the dog. That's fine because you need it to guard the dog. So it's not considered an extra burden. But I think in a place where there's no eruv, so then the person is not permitted. Way. So you can only go with a dog in a place where there is an eruv. And if there's an eruv, so then the animal can also carry a burden. So there's no problem. And now the rest of the daf discusses laws of tum'ah. Because the Mishnah mentioned about this sher. Sher is like this metal ring around the neck of the animal to which a smaller ring is attached, to which the rope is tied. So the Mishnah said that if that ring became tamei, it could be purified while still on the neck of the animal. Whether there's a need to sprinkle on it because it became tamei through a corpse, or if there's a need to immerse it in the river, so you can just bring the neck of the animal as is, insert it into the water of the river, and by that purify that metal ring on the neck of the animal. Umazin alen v'tovlan bimkoman. Questions. First of all, how come these rings are at all susceptible to tum'ah? That's one question. And the other question is interposition, because if the ring is tight, the water does not come all around the ring, and that's interposition, so the immersion is not apparently not good. So the first question is, is this to say that such a ring, which is like on an animal, is at all susceptible to tum'ah? How come? Vatnan, we have a Mishnah in Masechet Kelim, the 12th chapter, that says, Tabat Adam Tme'ah. A person's ring is indeed tamei. Because if a person puts a ring on his finger for beauty, like an adornment, jewelry, so that becomes tamei. Rashi says we learn it from the war of Midian, at the end of Parashat Mas'ei, Matot Mas'ei, and it says there, it's Adav, it's Hamid, Tabat, Agil, Vechumaz, all these jewelries that needed to be purified, they are susceptible to tum'ah. But the Mishnah there says that tabat behema v'chilim, which are tabat, all other rings that do not belong to a person, that a person does not wear a ring of an animal, a ring of a utensil, all these are not susceptible to tumah at all. It's not considered a utensil. So how could a ring of an animal be at all susceptible to tumah? So there are two answers here. One answer is that Amar Rabbi Yitzchak, that indeed a ring that was made for an animal, if that was the initial intention to make it for an animal, it's not susceptible to tum'ah. But the case of the Mishnah is that that ring was originally made for a person. It was like a jewelry for a person. And then they decided to downgrade it and put it on an animal's neck. But it became tameh when it still belonged to a person, and it was still considered a person's jewelry. As such, it could receive tum'ah. And even though they moved it to an animal, it's still tameh. It's a tameh object. So the Mishnah is telling us, if you want to purify it, you can still purify it as is on the neck of the animal. There's no need to remove it from the animal's neck. That's Rav Yitzchak's answer. The Rav Yosef has another answer. Rav Yosef Amar, he says, this animal indeed was made for, this ring was made for an animal, but it still receives tum'ah because, right, it became tameh on the human. That's according to Rav Yitzchak. According to Rav Yosef, it was made originally for an animal, but it's still susceptible to tum'ah because Rav Yosef Amar, O'il ve'adam moshech b'ayin et ha'beima, because a person is using this ring to pull the animal. Since a person is the one who uses that ring, so it's considered a kli, a vessel of a person. It's like an instrument that a person uses to pull the animal. Since it's for the person's use, it's like a vessel of a person which is susceptible to tumah. What you just said means that you could never walk with any animal holding a rope tied to its neck without an eruv, and with an eruv it doesn't matter. So why do we have the laws discussed in this? I think you might be right. Why do we have discussed in this Gemara? I have to check this. You're right, because it says that it may go out with this leash. Yotzin Kulchin. Yeah, I'm sorry, I was wrong. You're right. You can pull the animal with a rope, and even if there's no eruv. Yeah, it says Seif Tetzayin. I can check this. Oh, so you're right. Let me show you the Shulchan Aruch. It says that the explicit halacha in Shulchan Aruch, it says on Shabbat, hamotzi behema v'hu moshcha be'afsar. If you pull an animal with the afsar, that's like a rope tied to the neck of the animal, צריך להיזהר שלא יצא ראש החבל מתחת ידו טפח למטה. You must be careful that the rope does not go out a tefach below your hand, because it's like you're carrying something, and it does not appear like the thing of the animal. And also, you should not leave. You shouldn't leave a lot of the rope between the hand and the animal, so that the rope will not be down close to earth. And if it's a long rope, it says wrap it around the neck of the animal. So I'm sorry, you're right. David Kasuta, you're right. I was wrong. One is permitted to, even if there's no eruv, you can still carry an animal with a leash or with a rope. The animal can walk alone, but we are strict with dogs because of the laws of the land. So maybe the law of the land makes it necessary to guard the dog. You need to guard the dog. So, today, if you talk about the law of the land, anyway, there's an eruv, so there's no problem to carry it if there's an eruv. If there's no eruv, so if you need to guard the dog for any reason, so it's okay, you can carry it with a leash. It's needed to guard the dog. Okay, so these are the two answers. Rav Yosef's answer is that this ring on the neck of the animal is something that serves a person, and that's why it receives tumah. And he has a proof, Milotanya, from a Braita. Actually, it also appears in the Mishnah in Masechet Kelim, Makel shel behema shel matechet, a metal stick that one uses to hit the animal, Mekabel tumah. It's susceptible to tumah, even though he only uses it for the animal. Why? How come? Matam. Ho'il ve'adam rodeh behem, because it's a person who uses that stick. Since it's a person who is using that stick, he can it receives tumah. So Achanami here too, Ho'il ve'adam moshech behem, since it's a person who is holding this ring on the neck of the animal, it's susceptible to tumah. Okay, these are the two answers. And now comes another question. V'tovlan bimkoman. The Mishnah says that one can immerse that ring while it's on the neck of the animal. And the obvious question is, why is there no interposition due to the fact that the ring is tightly tight to the neck of the animal? So the water cannot go between the neck of the animal and the ring. And when you want to immerse something, you must have the water coming all around the object. If there's any place that the water cannot reach, the immersion is invalid. So the answer is Amar Rabbi Ami b'sheritcha. The answer is that he widened the ring. He has to take a hammer and hit it and widen the ring to leave space for the water to go between the neck of the animal and the ring. Otherwise, indeed, the immersion is invalid. Well, but now the Gemara says, if that's Rabbi Ami's answer, that he actually did an act to widen the ring, such an act, basically, according to the previous answer of Rav Yitzchak, that Rav Yitzchak held before that something that was made specially for an animal does not receive tumah at all. Only something that was made for a human being receives tumah, and then even if you took it and put it on an animal, it's still tameh. But if you talk about a change, that you made a physical change in that ring, so that change now basically designates this ring for an animal. So that should be a reason for the tum'ah to depart that ring, according to Rabbi Yitzchak. So the Gemara is now asking, Lema, shall we say that Rabbi Ami, who says that even widening the ring does not cause the tum'ah to depart it? So Lema Rabbi Ami, ke Rav Yosef Svirle, does he hold like Rav Yosef, who says that even a ring that was made originally for the animal receives tumah because it serves the human being, the person? Because the Ikar Rabbi Yitzchak, if he holds like Rabbi Yitzchak, the Amar Beva'in min noy adam le noy be'ima, who says that this ring was originally made for a person, and then they decided to put it on the neck of the animal. If that's the case, so then Kayvan Deritchan, once he did that act of widening the ring, avad b'u ma'aseh. That's an act that is telling you, that demonstrates that this ring is from now on designated for an animal, and as such, the tumah should depart the ring, because as the Mishnah says, the Mishnah says in Masechet Keilim, kol ha'keilim yordin lidei tumatan b'machshava. Anything that if you're in the process of making a utensil, once you thought, just a mere thought, for this to be finished, that already causes that to be susceptible to tumah. It's considered a kli, but ve'en olin mitumatan ela b'shinui ma'aseh. To cause the tumah to depart, you need an action. But once you make such an action that renders it something which is not susceptible to tumah, the tumah departs. So here too, if this ring, if you hold that the ring of an animal is not at all susceptible to tumah, only a ring of a human being, so if you moved it from a person to an animal and you did not do any act, any change in the ring, it's understandable that the ring is still tameh. But once you make a physical act of a change, of widening this ring, so then the tumah is supposed to depart from it, because it's now, that act demonstrates that from now on, this is an animal's ring, and an animal's ring, according to Rav Yitzchak, is not susceptible to tumah. So if Rabbi Ami says that in spite of widening the ring, it's still susceptible to tumah, apparently he holds like Rav Yosef and not like Rabbi Yitzchak. The answer is no. We can say that he even holds like Rabbi Yitzchak, but Savar la ke Rabbi Yehuda, he holds like Rabbi Yehuda. The Amar Maaseh letaken lav Maasehu. He says that a physical change that fixes, that improves, does not change the status of the tum'ah. It's still susceptible to tum'ah. Only something that destroys, that ruins, causes the tum'ah to depart. The Tanya, as the Baita says, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, lo amar shinui maaseh letaken ela lekalkel. An act, a change, a physical change in the object, causes the tumah to depart only if that physical act is something that ruins, that spoils, that destroys. That's the thing and the ring is something that improves it. It does not cause the tumah to depart, so there's no need to say that he holds only like Rav Yosef and not like Rav Yitzchak. Um, okay, now another matter of tum'ah. I'm sorry, b'matnita tani b'mchulalin. The Braita says that there's no question to begin with because the ring was made wide enough originally, so there's enough space for the water to go in, and there's no question of interposition, no problem. Another matter of tum'ah, Sha'al Talmid Echad, one disciple, Migalil Elyon, from the Upper Galilee, asked at Rabbi Eliezer. It says, Shamati shecholkin ben tabat. I heard that there is a distinction, halachic distinction between. So Amar lo, Rabbi Eliezer told him, Lo shamata ela l'inyan Shabbat. Perhaps you only heard in the context of Shabbat. In Shabbat, there is indeed a distinction between a signet ring and a ring without a signet. A signet ring, one may go out with Shabbat on Shabbat with. That distinction the Gemara later will discuss, page 60. There's a difference in Shabbat between a signet ring and a not signet ring. For tum'ah purposes, all rings are the same. They're all susceptible to tum'ah. And now the Gemara wonders, in the context of tum'ah, all rings are the same. They're all susceptible to tum'ah. How come? V'atnan, we have an explicit Mishnah, Masechet Kelim, 12th chapter, Tabat Adam Tme'ah. We quoted it before. A person's ring is susceptible to tum'ah. V'tabat Behema V'chelim Ush'al Kol HaTabaot Teorot. But other rings that do not belong to a person, if it's a ring of an animal, of a utensil, are not at all susceptible to tum'ah. So how can you say that all rings are the same? The answer is, he only meant to say, that all persons' rings are the same. He did not talk about rings besides persons' rings. And the question is still, all persons' rings are the same? They're all susceptible to tum'ah? How come? Ve'atanya, there's a Braita that says, Tabat she'itkina lachgor ba'motnav u'lekasher b'ben ktefav teora. If a person made a ring to fasten his loins, I think. Rashi says buckle. Rashi mentions the word buckle, like buckle to fasten the belt. If a person made such a ring to fasten his like a belt, or to tie his sleeves. Please repeat. Machloket, loss of spin. I'm not sure which machloket you're talking about, but anyway, this is saying loss of sound. I'll stay later on Facebook and do that. I suggest now that maybe we can end the Zoom meeting and then re-enter, because there are less than 2 minutes left. So I guess we can end it and re-enter. I'm sorry, I'm not sure which dispute, which machloket you refer to. Machloket. Okay, so now we have more time. So welcome back. So the question is that Rabbi Eliezer said to that disciple that all rings are the same in the context of tum'ah. What ring are we talking about? Exactly, that's the question we're discussing. What ring are we talking about? Rabbi Eliezer said that for Shabbat purposes, there is indeed a distinction between a signet ring and another ring. But for Tum'ah, in the context of Tum'ah, there's no difference. All rings are the same. They're all susceptible to Tum'ah. And the obvious question was, is that correct? Are all rings susceptible to Tum'ah? But we said that only people's rings are susceptible to Tum'ah, not animals' rings. So the answer was, he indeed only spoke about people's rings and not animals or utensils rings. And the question was still, even in people's rings, are they all susceptible to Tum'ah? If it's a ring that one installed to buckle up or to fasten something, his sleeves, Teorah, that's the whole. The only Tameh ring of a person is a ring which is like which is not a jewelry on the finger, not for beauty, is not tamei. So the answer is that indeed Rabbi Eliezer only spoke about a ring on the finger. All rings of people's fingers are all susceptible to tum'ah. That's what Rabbi Eliezer says. And the question is that indeed so? Ve'atnan, but the etzba da veda achat hi, ve'atnan, but we have a Mishnah that says, Masechet Keilim, chapter 12, tabat shel matechet, ve'chotama shel almog tme'ah. If the ring itself is made of metal, but the signet on it is made of wood, the ring is tamei. Because what matters is the material of the ring itself. Now a ring, if it's made of wood, is not susceptible to tum'ah because of the rule that pshutei klei etz, any wooden utensil which is not a receptacle, a flat wooden utensil is not susceptible to tum'ah. And a ring is a flat wooden utensil because there's no receptacle in it. So if the ring itself is made of wood, it's not susceptible to tum'ah, even though the signet on it is made of metal. What matters is the material of the ring itself. So the Mishnah there says, tabat shel matechet v'chotama shel almog tme'ah. Hi shel almog v'chotama shel matechet te'ora. So we see that even in the rings that are on a person's finger, there's a distinction between a metal ring and a wooden ring. So how could Rabbi Eliezer say that all rings on people's fingers are the same? The Mishnah makes a distinction between the materials of rings. The answer is that so the conclusion is that Rabbi Eliezer only referred to a metal ring on a person's finger, and he says that all metal rings on a person's finger are the same, they're all susceptible to tum'ah. There are other types of rings which are not, but that's the conclusion of Rabbi Eliezer's intention. Another question that disciple asked Rabbi Eliezer, ve'od sha'al, Shamati shecholkin ben machat lemachat. He told him, I heard that there's a halachic distinction between two types of needles. So Rabbi Eliezer answered him, Amar lei, Shema lo shamata ela Shabbat. You perhaps only heard it in the context of Shabbat, because in Shabbat, if you take out a ring to a public domain, you're only liable in case the ring, a needle. We talk about a needle. If you take out a needle to a public domain on Shabbat, so then you're only liable in case the needle is a utensil, which has both ends made. It has a hole on one end, and it's can puncture on the other hand, the point on the other hand. So for that one is liable. If there's no hole, if they did not yet make the hole in the needle, one is not liable on Shabbat for carrying it to the public domain. So there's a distinction in the laws of Shabbat. It says, in the context of tum'ah, all needles are the same, they're all susceptible to tum'ah, regardless of whether there's a hole or no hole, they're all considered the utensil which can receive tum'ah. And here too, the Gemara wonders, in the context of tum'ah, all needles are the same? How come? The Mishnah says in Masechet Keilim, machat shenital chora, or oktzah, one of the two ends of the needle was removed, whether the hole was cut off or the point at the sharp end of the needle was cut off, the needle is now useless and it's tahor, it does not receive tum'ah anymore. So we see that even in the laws of tum'ah there's a distinction between a whole needle and a broken needle. So how could he say that there's no all needles are the same? The answer is he only spoke about whole needles. A whole needle, in the context of tum'ah, they're all the same. They all receive tum'ah. In Shabbat, there's a distinction. And the question is, if you talk about a whole needle, they're all the same in the laws of tum'ah. How come? But the Mishnah says, also Masechet Keilim, machat shehelta chaluda. If a needle became rusty, if there's rust on the needle, if that rust disturbs the sewing, so then teorah, the needle is tahor. You cannot. Nobody's going to use it to sew, so the needle is tahor. It's not a utensil. They explained what does it mean that there's an impression, a rusty impression on the fabric, you cannot use that needle if it's a stained needle. You cannot use it to sew. There's going to be a stain on the garment, so it's a tahor. So there is a distinction even in the laws of tumah between a rusty needle and a not rusty needle. So the answer is ki ka'amar le. Rabbi Eliezer only referred to b'shifa ka'amar le. Shifa, I understand from Rashi that this is stainless steel needle. It says nishafet b'shufina. It says en b'chaludat. It's a stainless steel needle. So such a needle could does not. There's no distinction. They're all received tumah. And the question is, Uveshifa, even that, Davida Achati, all needles are the same? How come? Ve'atanya, there's a braita that says, Machat, a needle, ben nekuva, ben einan nekuva, whether hollowed or not, whether there's a hole there or not, mutar letaltela b'Shabbat, one may carry it on Shabbat, because you could use it even without a hole on one end, you could use the pointed end to remove a splinter, to remove something, so it's a usable thing, even without the hole, even if not for sewing. So you can carry it on Shabbat. It's a vessel. ולא אמרו נקובה אלא לעניין טומאה בלבד. And the hole is only required for the purpose of tum'ah. For it to receive tum'ah, there must be a hole at the end of the needle. Without a hole, it does not receive tum'ah. So here we see that there is a distinction in the laws of tum'ah between a needle with a hole and a needle without a hole. The answer is that Tirgema Abai already explained it, Aliba de Rava, begolme, that this Mishnah, this Braita that distinguishes between a hole and without a hole speaks about unfinished needle. In the process of making the needles, they cut it, and there, as long as it was not finished, it does not yet receive tumah because it was not completed yet. It's still in the process of being made into a needle. So it's like called golem. It's not yet a finished product. As such, it cannot receive tumah. But if it's already a finished needle, so then there's no distinction. They all receive tumah. That's the conclusion. Maybe we could perhaps see the next. Yes, maybe after. Okay, I'll post the Zoom address after the in Facebook after the shir. Maybe we can just see the next Mishnah as an introduction to tomorrow's daf. And it says, Chamor yotzeh b'mirdat, a donkey may go out on Shabbat b'mirdat. Mirdat is like something that they put on the donkey to heat it. Donkey is always cold. The donkeys, even in the summer, they're cold. You need to heat them. So it's like a garment for the donkey. You put it around the belly of the donkey. Bizman shekshura. So if it's tied to it, a saddlecloth, right? Saddlecloth for a coat, right? So it may go out without on Shabbat if it's tied properly to the donkey. Zicharim yotzin levuvin, male ram. The public domain levuvin. All these terms the Gemara will explain later. The rechilot, they use the female sheep. Yotzot shchuzot kvulot uchvunot. This will all be explained by the Gemara later. Ha'izim, the goats. Yotzot tzrurot, they tie their udders. Now there are two reasons why to tie the udders of the goats. Either to dry them up, for them not to produce milk, and then they could become pregnant, or sometimes it's to keep the milk. The milk will not drip to the ground, so they tie like a pocket to receive the milk. So these goats can go out with that. Tzrurot, Rabbi Yossi, Oser bechulan, Rabbi Yossi prohibits all of them, chutz min harechilin hakvunot, except for they use these female sheep that are have this thing around them to keep their wool clean, and that's like an adornment for them. The Gemara will explain all of this. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, izim yotzot tzrurot leyabesh aval lo lechalav. The goats may go out with this with their udders tied in case the purpose is to dry them up. Then it's tied tightly, and there's no concern that it might fall. But if it's tied loosely just to receive the milk, so then he prohibits them to go out on Shabbat. So this to be discussed further in tomorrow's daf. Thank you very much. And hopefully tomorrow at 9 o'clock, right? Yeah. And I guess Wednesday. I think we can do the same time. No, 9 o'clock. think so.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yom Tov.
Kol tov.
Bye, everybody.
Bye bye. So I'll post in Facebook the Zoom. I'll put the link for the Zoom in Facebook. Okay. Kol tov.